Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. Well, I was just about to do a video on another game based on a movie, but this popped up and I thought this would be a fun topic to talk about. Now, I was watching Zero Page Homebrew. They do, they're on Twitch and YouTube. They talk about, obviously, homebrews, mostly Atari 2600 games, all these new games. So I was watching their latest episode, and they got into a conversation. There was a poll at some point. I wrote down the actual question, was, why are not more classic Atari 2600 fans into homebrew? And I thought that was a real interesting topic, and they brought up some really good points. Like, there was like a few things that I totally agreed with. Like, the first point was nostalgia driven, obviously. You know, people who are into this stuff, we're all kind of nostalgia for the stuff that we grew up with. So that totally makes sense. You know, we want to play. Sometimes there was games we wish we had when we were kids. We didn't get them, so now we have the money or the time or whatever, and we can go and get them now. The second one was cost of homebrews. Yes, the homebrews are expensive, but I mean, if you go back in time, the original games were expensive too, right? But that being said, in today's world, if you want to buy a Frogger or Pitfall, it's going to be like $5-10. So compared to like a homebrew, which is usually around 60 in most cases, especially for the more recent ones. And then 3, unaware that they exist. And that's why I thought this would be a fun video to do, because I think there needs to be a little bit more information sent out there, because it's kind of a tight-knit community when you're dealing with the old-style retro gamers, especially like Atari 2600 and Intellivision, which, you know, the two things I like to talk about probably the most. Even ColecoVision, a lot of the old systems have homebrews now, and some people are just not aware of them, or they just, you know, there's not enough videos, or there's not enough discussion. And actually what they were saying in their during their live cast was that you don't typically, like, if you go on the Atari Facebook groups, the Atari 2600 Facebook groups, most of these groups, people are usually posting about the old stuff. They're talking about Yar's Revenge, they're talking about Pitfall and Hero and all the great old games that we all love. But you hardly ever see topics about homebrews. So I thought, let's do a little video and talk about some great homebrews and why they're great, and you know, just to bring a little bit more awareness and what homebrews are, in case you're watching this going, what the heck is a homebrew? Because that was part of their concern, was maybe there's some people who just don't know. Now, if you're not familiar with a homebrew, so the original, say, for the Intellivision, this is Donkey Kong. We all know that we didn't get the greatest Donkey Kong version out there. And, you know, it had 2 screens. Mario looked weird. The sounds were weird. Everything was weird about it. It wasn't Donkey Kong. But fast forward to today's world, and we have games like DK Arcade, which I have talked about on my channel. In fact, I think I show in the intro of my clip here, where I hold up this box. This game was made by Carl Mueller Jr., who took the capacities of the Intellivision and made the best Donkey Kong version you could find on the Intellivision. It's got all the screens. In fact, this was DK Arcade, which just has the 4 screens, the 4 original screens. And then there was D2K, which had 4 additional screens on top of that. Really cool. And yes, they are a little bit pricey, of course. But as they mentioned in Zero Page Homebrew, there's a lot of ways you can get these for cheaper, like emulation. If you have a ROM cart, like the flash cart, the LTO flash cart, you could buy the ROM. Even if you don't have the flash cart, you could buy the ROM and run it on a PC. And that's another thing, is the education. And I know that was brought up too. Not necessarily education, but just the know-how to load an emulator onto your computer or onto your device, or whatever you usually typically have, to learn how to, you know, load the emulator on there, find the ROMs, and put the ROMs on there. Now, a lot of homebrews, yes, even the ROMs could be $15, $20, depending on the programmer, depending on where it's coming from. but a lot of them are also free. They make them free. People put out the demos, or just the developers themselves. They create games and they just release them for free, going, here you go. You know, if you go on the forums and stuff, you can find that stuff. But yeah, so you can actually end up playing these games on your computer if you don't want to pay the $60, or maybe you don't have an Atari anymore. I know they were focusing more on the people who are active players, who actively have an Atari set up, play Atari games. Maybe they have the ROM carts and all that stuff, and they still only playing the old games. So I guess, you know, if you're looking at that demographic, they're already going to know how to do this stuff. There was other games that, you know, so basically this is a report. I don't know what you want to call it, because the game technically existed on the Intellivision already. This just made it better. But there's also a huge amount of games like this one, Rick Dynamite, which I've had talked about on my channel before, and I've showed a review of this one. This is, I think the original is Rick Dangerous. This is like a port of a game that never existed on the Intellivision. And so it actually gives you, you know, the opportunity to play games that never existed and have way more better graphics, phenomenal graphics, better character designs and movements and all that stuff that was kind of lacking from some of the original Intellivision games. And of course I've talked about this one as well, Defender of the Crown, which was a game you would have thought would never be able to exist on the Intellivision. You know, when I was a kid, I always figured the Intellivision, even up until like probably a few years, I always figured the Intellivision was too inferior for games of this magnitude. But programmers have proved us wrong. Even the backstory on this game, from what I understand and from what I've read, was that the programmer, Arnold Chevalier, I probably screwed his name up, he wanted to prove that this game could exist, and a lot of great people got together and made this game possible. Different people who knew how to make better graphics, who knew how to make the sounds. I mean, a huge team, a great team of people was put together to make something that we would have never thought we would see on the original Intellivision. And this almost matches what you would see on like something like Nintendo, which is really impressive considering. But then there's also, oh, sorry, the other thing I wanted to talk about this one, and what I'm going to mention with the other game that I have here, is that these guys like Electronite, they don't consider their games homebrews. Homebrew is a term that's kind of loosely used for a game that kind of exists outside of its initial run, I guess you want to say. So like the last Atari games were like 89, 90, somewhere in there, like official released Atari games. After that, then it was you know, people tinkering around essentially. Homebrew, I guess, is a word that's used not just in games, but all over the place for different reasons. Basically saying that somebody made it themselves. And there are some games like that. I don't know if I have that. I had one here somewhere. I gotta clean up my man cave. It's a mess. But yeah, there were some games where they literally looked like it was, they just used tape and they wrote the name on and stuff like that. But these are like actual high production value. These are not homebrews. This was not a man sitting in his basement like me typing in code. This was, you know, people who really know what they're doing, who built a company like Electronite and actually put real quality and detail into their products. So these are not homebrews. These are actually just released Intellivision games, which makes it a lot cooler because it makes you feel like you're still in a time where Intellivision is out on the shelves. We can only wish that. I mean, I wish I could go into a Walmart and buy games for my Intellivision, but that probably will never happen. You know, we had that kind of happen back in the mid-'80s when the Atari re-released games with the Atari Junior. But so anyways, the last one I have here, I don't have a lot of boxed homebrews myself. I do have some ROMs, but I don't, you know, as far as homebrews, like my collection is small right now, so it's gonna grow. But anyways, Circus Convoy, and yes, I've talked about this. A lot of people have talked about this. This was a big thing. When this got announced that some of the best programmers in the Atari, in this world, we're going to start making Atari games again. This blew a lot of people away. The company is Audacity Games, and of course this was, these guys are from the original Activision, who made Pitfall, who made, you know, endless great games for the Atari 2600, who came back and said, you know what, we enjoyed doing this. So we had David Crane, who made Pitfall, we had Gary Kitchen, we have Dan Kitchen. These guys knew their stuff, and they still know their stuff, and they're still making games. And again, this is not a homebrew. This is an actual company making this stuff. This is like, you know, professionally done. They got it all laminated and stuff. You get a manual. You get all these little fun things inside there. And they're actually, you know, they're not rushing this stuff out into the market. They took their time. David Crane said it when I interviewed him. David Crane said that we're not going to rush stuff to the stores. Maybe that was the problem with a lot of the old games, you know. It was all corporate driven. It was all greed. You know, get the game out, get the game out. That's why we ended up with Pac-Man the way it was for the 2600. You know, get it out on the shelf. We don't care how bad the game looks. They didn't do that. This game is amazing. This game is huge. I only got like not even a quarter through it still, because it's just, there's so much to do. And it's amazing that this is sold. You know, you can go to their website and buy a copy of this brand new. They do have another game coming out too, which is hopefully, well, supposedly, I don't know if where they are with that, but that was announced that Dan Kitchen's Gold Rush was going to be released, so we're all heavily waiting for that one. But anyways, yeah, this was, you know, I just wanted to talk about this because I thought this is a topic that I'm sure a lot of people in the retro gaming community maybe have heard of homebrews, maybe, you know, they've heard here and there, but they don't fully grasp what it is, or you know, maybe they don't think they're as great as the older games, or they think it's just, you know, individual programmers like myself. Like I've started programming games for the Intellivision. You know, hopefully, you know, we're going to have some of those games actually released as well. But, you know, maybe they think they're just not going to be as good. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why people might not know what about the homebrew scene, and, you know, where they can get these games and how they can download them on their computers and stuff and still play great games that give you the classic feel that are brand new. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Throw some comments down below. Let me know what you think. If you have anything to add to the list that that they created, the Zero Page Homebrew, you know, that they had about 3 or 4 great points in their video. So, you know, go check them out anyways. Hope you liked the video. Hope you subscribe. Talk to you later.